الله شفيع الله نبي الله.
Also, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was feeling tension, like the Bani Qaynuqa weren't happy with him. Right? Well, they weren't happy with the Muslims because they were talking so bad after Badr against the Muslims. Right? He thought after Badr their hearts would turn towards Islam, or at least towards friendship with them, because of the great miracle of Badr. But it was the opposite. It made them even angrier. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went down to the place where the Bani Qaynuqa were, and he warned them a simple warning: do not call down the anger of Allah against you, which has just fallen upon the Quraysh. He said, do not do anything silly, lest the anger of Allah fall upon you, like it did Quraysh. And you know what they said? "Oh Muhammad," they answered, "do not be deluded. Do not be fooled by that encounter, because you fought against men who have no knowledge of war. And you won, you beat them, but by God, if we were to make war on you, you shall know that we are meant to be feared." Right? They were boasting. When Rasulullah, he didn't expect this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was very sad, and he turned and left. Now they thought we won, right? They think, yeah, these guys think they can get us. And a few days later, things really got to like a climax. Things got really bad. In the marketplace of the Bani Qaynuqa, an incident occurred. A Muslim woman came to sell or exchange some goods, and she was insulted very badly by one of the goldsmiths, one of the Jewish goldsmiths. An Ansar heard this and came to her rescue. And the person who said the insults was killed in the fight. And then the Jews came and killed the Muslim. Right? Now, both families demanded vengeance. And really, if you think about it, both had done wrong. Right? Blood had been shed on both sides. And someone had to come in, and it could easily be settled. Yani, if people said, if the Jews said, "Muhammad, one of your Muslims has killed one of ours," and then Rasulullah took it together, it could have been arbitrated. Rasulullah could have said, "Okay, so this is what needs to happen. Two bads have happened. This person needs to be punished for doing a bad. This person," there was a lot of, but it could easily have been dealt with, right? They could have easily asked Muhammad Rasulullah Nabi Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to arbitrate, to decide, to be judge, to be the judge, the qadi. Okay, this person did bad, so he has to do this, and this person did bad, and this person has to pay money to this family, this person has to pay money to this family, and la hawla wa la quwwata, this is such a sad situation, right? Something like that, right? But they didn't want to do this, and they decided from this one little thing, right? I mean, it was a problem, but it wasn't so big. They decided the time had come to teach the Muslims a lesson. So they called their friends, Ibn Ubay and Ubadah. So before Islam, these are Arabs who had been their friends, and they withdrew for the moment, as they thought. They went into their powerfully fortified fortresses, right? So they had fortresses, like big stone walls, no one could come in. They all went into their fortresses, right? And they thought, we have so much food, we have so much water, and Ibn Ubay from the Arabs will come help us, and Ubadah Ibn Samit will come and help us. And they already had 700 Jewish men in the fortresses. That's more than double what the Muslims had in Badr. They thought, we'll teach the Muslims a lesson over so small incident. Yeah, they could have just said, let's work this out. Come on, let's work this out amongst us. But they said, we want to teach the Muslims a lesson. Right? So they're in their fortress. They've called Ibn Ubay and Ubadah, but Ibn Ubay, he went to consult with Ubadah. And Ubadah said, no way. He said after Islam, because they had a treaty with Bani Qaynuqa to protect them. But he said, Islam takes away all those treaties. My treaty with Rasulullah comes first and foremost. And they are trying to fight Rasulullah. And then they thought, they called for help from I can't remember who they called help from. There were two other tribes. There were two other tribes outside that they called for help or something, but they didn't come either. And then Rasulullah got an army together. He said, we will go to Bani Qaynuqa. And he got a bigger army. Yes, he did. So what happened was, Rasulullah got an even bigger army than 700 and stood outside the thing and said, you can't get out. For 2 weeks, the Bani Qaynuqa, they waited for help. No one came to help them. They ate all their food, drank all their water, and after 2 weeks, they surrendered unconditionally. They said, you're right, you win. Right? Now what have they done, Zaini? They said they would help the Muslims, and now they have sat there in their fortress to fight their own country. They fought their own country. What is it? It's called treason. Treason. So, what is the rule for treason? It's death. And Ibn Ubay came to Rasulullah and he said, Ya Rasulullah, treat my confederates well. And he could see how angry Rasulullah was with the Bani Qaynuqa. But he said, treat them well, and Rasulullah endlessly merciful. Even though these people have done, really in the desert this is unthinkable. In the desert, if you do treason, you die. But Rasulullah said, no, they just have to leave Medina though, because if they're in Medina, they're a danger to us. Rasulullah, I don't know how he was so patient, because you have to remember, Zaini, now because Bani Qaynuqa hasn't been put to death, you know what's going to happen? The other Jewish tribes will do it again. You remember in the Khandaq? You know the story of the Khandaq, right, Zaini? We haven't done the story of the trench.
Yes.
When the Quraysh came, another Jewish tribe tried to fight us. They went with the Quraysh. This is the problem with treason, Zaini. This is the problem with treason. If you don't put someone to death because of treason, then in the future another person is going to do it again.
And then you need to do that again.
And then if you don't do it to them, they do it again. And so Rasulullah SAW, this time, he's going to spare the people who did treason. He's going to say, you go with your life, go, get out of here. Just get out of Medina. Right? Because he was endlessly merciful. But at the end of the day, because of that, again, I think it's the Bani Nadir. Imagine when the Quraysh came to fight us, they fought with the Quraysh against us. When we were surrounded by Qurayshis trying to kill us, they went and helped the Qurayshis. And this is the problem with treason, Zaini. But this time, Nabi Allah in His endless mercy, decided to spare them. And in the future,
Was that right?
and in the future, when Bani Nadir does it again, he doesn't spare them. Okay? Because he's responsible for a whole country. And if he lets people get away with treason, bad people doing bad things, if they get away with treason, good people like you will die. Even though you've done nothing wrong. Because when they help the enemies, what if your own people help the enemies? How will you fight? You can't. So this is an unfortunate thing about life, is when people do wrong, they have to get punished. But on this instance, the Bani Qaynuqa will walk away free. It won't happen in the future. Never again. Alhamdulillah wa shukrullah.
Allah, Shafi' Allah, Nabi Allah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. One of the immediate acts, one of the first things that Rasulullah Nabi Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did on his return from Badr sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to visit the grave of his daughter Ruqayyah. His daughter Ruqayyah had passed away while he was out in Badr. In fact, Ruqayyah's husband, Uthman ibn Affan, he was married to Rasulullah's daughter. Yes, the one who's going to be a Khalifa. He was married to Rasulullah's daughter, and he actually didn't go for Badr. He didn't fight with the Muslims at Badr because Rasulullah told him, your wife is sick, stay at home and take care of her. And so he did. And one of the sad things upon the return from Badr, Rasulullah was very happy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very happy. He was very happy in Badr, but when he came back he was a bit saddened to find that his daughter Ruqayyah passed away. So he would visit the grave of his daughter Ruqayyah, the place where she's buried, the ground. Fatima, who's Fatima?
When did she not born?
She was born. Fatima is Rasulullah's
Youngest daughter.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam, radiallahu anha, his daughter, and she used to go with him. So Ruqayyah was her sister, her older sister. She was very sad. Fatima Zahra, radiallahu anha, she was very sad by the loss of her sister. In fact, when she went to the grave, tears poured from her eyes. She was sitting with Nabi Allah and she had tears rolling down her eyes. And her father would sit with her at the edge of the grave, and he would comfort her, and he used to try to dry her tears with his cloak. He used to dry his tears. And from this came there was a misunderstanding about what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said previously. He had spoken against lamentations for the dead. Yani before Islam, the Jahiliyyah, in the Jahl time, in the Jahiliyyah times, the Jahl people, when someone died, they would start crying loudly. Like this, they'll cry for hours and hours and hours.
Why?
In fact, Zaini, some people were paid to do that. So if someone you loved died and say your mother died or something, you paid some people to come and to make loud crying noises. Really, I'm not joking. It was called walwala. They would come and wail and wail and wail. And they would hit themselves. And they slapped themselves. Because they were so sad. But it was really it was meant to be done by the people, like the son or the daughter. But sometimes because they couldn't do it well themselves, they paid someone to come in. They would slap themselves and they would hit themselves. And they would cry loudly, Zaini. So this is haram. Like no haram, but it's I don't know what the ruling is, but it's not allowed. It's against Rasulullah has spoken against these kind of lamentations for the dead, this kind of sadness for the dead. This is not okay. But because he said this led to a misunderstanding. People thought any sadness, if you show any sadness after someone dies, this is wrong. But this was this misunderstanding was fixed. When they returned from the cemetery, so they were coming back from the cemetery, the place where you bury people. They were walking past some women, and the women were weeping. There were tears coming from their eyes because they were sad for the people who died in Badr, the martyrs who died in Badr. And for Ruqayyah radiallahu anha, they were crying. And Omar, not loudly, just tears coming from their eyes. And Omar got angry with them. He said, even your Nabi is walking in front of you and you're doing something haram, right? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ya Omar, let them weep. And then he added, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what comes from the heart and from the eye, that is from Allah and His mercy. Yani, when you're truly sad and something comes, tears come from your eyes, you don't push out sound. Like, that's okay. But purposely making it louder, yani what he said next, what comes from the heart and from the eye, this is from Allah and His mercy. But what comes from the hand and from the tongue, this is from shaitan. So making loud noises, this is not okay. Even if you feel like it, you shouldn't. You should not. It's not okay. It's not from the sunnah. Let's just say that. It's not from the sunnah. Even if you're very sad, you should try to control it. And if you cry, it's fine. If you cry, you weep, this is okay. But making loud noises and hitting yourself and things like this, well, people really did that, Zaini. This is not okay. This is from shaitan, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. And this cleared things up because, remember, we have the middle path. We don't say you can't weep at all, but you shouldn't be shouting it. Right? Just be sad and mourn for 3 days. Alhamdulillah. Say Alhamdulillah. Death is a beautiful thing too. Now Fatima was the youngest of his daughters, Nabi Allah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. And this was a very special daughter, Fatima al-Zahra. They say she is the Fatima Sayyidahu Nisa'i Ahl al-Jannah. She is the Fatima is the Sayyidahu. She is the Sayyid of the Nisa of Ahl al-Jannah, the women of the people of Jannah. She is their leader. So when Fatima al-Zahra, she of all the women in Jannah, the people of Jannah, there will be women in Jannah. She is their Sayyid. I suppose that's to my understanding. Yes. Allahu A'lam. I hope I'm right. She's a very special lady. Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidah Nisa Ahl al-Jannah is the dua. She was at this time when this happened. She was about 20 years old. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam many times to his family, he had already spoken that I like Ali. He is the most fitting husband for her. Radiallahu anhu. The great Ali ibn Abi Talib. Radiallahu anhu. But no formal marriage happened. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam liked Ali for Fatima. He wanted Ali to marry Fatima, but he hadn't approached him. He hadn't gone to him. Then Abu Bakr and Umar both asked for her hand. Abu Bakr said, can I marry her? And Umar asked, can I marry her? But the Prophet, Nabi Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he put them off. Not by saying that she was already promised to another, but by telling them that he must wait for the time appointed by heaven. He said this will come from heaven, who Fatima al-Zahra marries. It was only in the weeks that followed his return from Badr that he became certain that the time had come. And he spoke words of encouragement to Ali. He tried to encourage Ali in the wish that he should ask for Fatima radiallahu anha's hand. Ali radiallahu anhu, he was at first hesitant. And this was because he was very, 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 very poor. He inherited nothing from his father. Yani his father He got no money from him when he died. He had almost nothing. He had a small, humble dwelling. You couldn't even call it a house. It was a small room. So a humble dwelling, not far from the mosque. So this was a good thing. It wasn't too far from the mosque, but it was very humble, very simple. And he was poor. Yani in the riwayah, that it's not in the book, but in the riwayah I heard, Ali radiallahu anhu, his job was to bring water for the people. So the people, they would want a bucket of water in their house. He would grab the bucket, go to the well, put water in it, and bring it to the people's house and put it down. He was a water carrier. He was a poor, poor man. But the words coming from Nabi Allah were encouraging. And he allowed himself, radiallahu anhu, to be persuaded. He made a formal proposal. Ali, radiallahu anhu, he made a formal proposal to marry Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's prized daughter, Fatima Zahra radiallahu anha. He's not a Khalifa right now. How can he be a Khalifa? Rasulullah sallallahu still alive. But in the future he will be a Khalifa. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam insisted on a wedding feast. A ram was sacrificed. Some of the Ansar bought grains, so they bought like rice to eat. They even what did they do? They prepared the food. They bought some sand to make it so, if you put good sand on the floor, it becomes soft on your feet. The other day, remember Zaini, you were walking on the beach and the sand felt soft? So they bought sand like that and they put it on the ground, because it's a bit hard, the ground. So they put some sand from the riverbed. They scattered it over the floor. They made a bed for Ali radiallahu anhu and Fatima Zahra, because there was no bed. So I'll tell you, the bed was a sheepskin. So they put a sheepskin on the ground, and on top of it they put a striped cloth from the Yemen. And they had no pillow, so they got a leather cushion and they put palm fibers inside it. Right? So that was their bed. It was a sheepskin with a chadar on top and one pillow in the middle. And then, so they had the bed over here, and they had sand on the ground, Zaini. Can you believe it? They had a ram to eat. They had sand on the ground and a carpet. And then they even laid out some dates and some figs for guests to eat. They had water. This was the marriage, alhamdulillah, of Ali radiallahu anhu. And Zaini, it's an amazing thing. This was the daughter of like the prime minister of that city, like the leader of the city. This was his daughter getting married to one of the poorest men in the city. And they're so simple. Like, I know they were simple people back then. But if you look now, in the Muslim countries, not non-Muslims, in the Muslim countries, people are spending millions of dollars, millions of riyals, literally, on a wedding. And what did Rasulullah decide was the best? A ram, put some sand on the floor, get some figs out. They were, alhamdulillah, a simple people. And Rasulullah, Nabi Allah always told the Sahaba, there will become a time in the future. There will come a time in the future when the people, they will eat in the morning. This is from my memory. They'll eat in the morning, and they'll know exactly what they're going to eat at night. Because this was foreign to the Sahaba. When they ate in the morning, they didn't know, maybe I'll eat at lunch, maybe I won't have anything to eat today, inshallah I will, but they didn't know. So they were like, really, the people will have such a good condition, they'll be so rich that they even know, I'm going to eat steak for lunch, and then for dinner I'll have this and that. And then he said, yes, they will. And then he said, there'll come a time when the people, they will wear one cloth in the morning, and then they'll take it off even though it's not dirty, and they'll wear another cloth in the night. And they say, Ya Rasulullah, there'll even come a time when the Muslims' condition is as good as this? And he said, yes. And then they said, Ya Rasulullah, in this time when the Muslims' conditions are so good, they must find a lot of time for deen. They have no difficulties. They know what they're going to eat. They know they have enough clothes to wear. You know, subhanAllah, they must have so much time for deen. They must be so good in their deen. And Rasulullah says, no. Because in this time, it's complicated. When you have things, the more things you have, the more complicated your life becomes. And Rasulullah says, no, their deen will not be strong. Your deen will be stronger, because as they get more dunya, their life becomes more complicated. Later in the day, when all the guests had left, Rasulullah ﷺ asked for some water to be bought to him. And he basically did kulli in it. He took a mouthful of the water, rinsed his mouth, and spat it back into the vessel, so that his blessed saliva mixed with the water. Then, when Ali radiallahu anhu came, he asked him to sit in front of him. And taking some of the water in his hand, he sprinkled it over his shoulders, over his chest, over his arms, around his heart. Then he called Fatima radiallahu anha to him. She came as usual, tripping over her robe in awe and reverence of her father, and he did the same thing to her, sprinkling the water over her shoulders, her chest, around her heart, and invoked blessings upon them both and upon their offspring. In the year that followed the return from Badr, the family of Umar radiallahu anhu, this is Umar ibn al-Khattab, suffered two losses. And one of these losses was the death of his son-in-law, Khunais. Khunais was the husband of his daughter Hafsa radiallahu anha. So Hafsa now no longer had a husband. Now, Hafsa, Umar radiallahu anhu wanted to find a husband for Hafsa, because now she had none. And she was a widow. And seeing that Ruqayyah had passed away, and that Uthman radiallahu anhu now didn't have a wife, he saw it sensible to ask Uthman radiallahu anhu. So Umar went to Umar ibn al-Khattab went to Uthman ibn Affan and offered him his daughter Hafsa in marriage. Uthman said he would think about it. But after some days, he came to Umar and he said, radiallahu anhu, he came to Umar and he said, I think it'll be better if I don't marry again for now. Now Umar was very disappointed. And he was also somewhat hurt by Uthman's refusal. He's like, how could Uthman refuse? I thought he was my friend. To marry his daughter, Hafsa. Uthman said no. So he was quite hurt. But he was determined to find a good husband for his daughter. So he went to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. He counted Abu Bakr as his best friend. And he went to him and he proposed that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu marry his daughter Hafsa. Abu Bakr answered him evasively. He's like, I don't know. He avoided it. This hurt Umar's feelings even more, because now Uthman had said no, and Abu Bakr has said no. He felt very bad about this Umar radiallahu anhu. He felt sad. And the next time Umar radiallahu anhu was with Nabi Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he vented his grievance. he said, what's going on, Ya Nabi? I offer my daughter to Uthman, and he says no. And I offer it to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and he says no. What have I done wrong? Have I done something to Umar? He said, I wonder if I've done something wrong to them. His daughter, right? His daughter's name is Hafsa.
You said Uthman.
No. Umar's daughter is Hafsa, and he wants Uthman to marry Hafsa or Abu Bakr to marry Hafsa. And both of them have said no. And now he's very sad. When he's sitting there being sad with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam answers him and he says, behold, I will show you a better son-in-law than Uthman, and I will show him a better father-in-law than you. Now, Umar radiallahu anhu, he's very sagacious. He realized straight away what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying. You know what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying? He says, I will show you a better son-in-law than Uthman. Yani, Umar wanted Uthman to be his son, right? Like son-in-law, right? Because married to his daughter. But he said, I can be a better son-in-law than Uthman. And Rasulullah. And he said, I will show him a better father-in-law than you. So he's saying, they both said no because I want to marry Hafsa. And Umar was so happy because he thought he did something to upset them, but they just said no because Rasulullah had told them before that he wanted to marry Hafsa. So he says, so be it, said Umar. And he was smiled and he was happy. And he was very sagacious and he realized straight away what Rasulullah meant. And he was very happy. And Hafsa got married to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes? Yeah, not much. And she became part of the blessed household. There's a great story. Sweetie. There's a great story about Fatima Zahra radiallahu anha and Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu when they were when Fatima was finding it quite difficult in the house. She was doing so much work, her hands were sore, her back hurt, and Rasul, sorry? Yeah, and that's right, that's the story we're doing. And she and Ali radiallahu anhu came to her and he said, you know, your father, he has some servants now that have come into his position. Why don't you go ask him for? And so they wait just a minute. So he convinced her. Ali radiallahu anhu convinced Fatima radiallahu anha, and she went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and went to ask. And she wasn't, but she didn't really want to, but she got convinced by Ali radiallahu anhu. Now when she went there, the Prophet said, "What has brought you here, little daughter?" And she said, I came to give you greetings of peace. I came to give you salam. She said, but in her awe, in her reverence of him, she could not bring herself to ask what she truly intended. She could not ask for a servant. When she came back, what did you do? What did you do? Said Ali. When she returned and she had no servant. I was ashamed to ask him, she said. So they both plucked up the courage to go together, and the two of them went together. But when they got there, and somehow they plucked up the courage to ask, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam felt he didn't give her to them. He felt they were less in need than others. I will not give it to you, he said. And let the people of the bench, the Ahl Sufa, be tormented with hunger. I have not enough for them, but I will spend on them what may come from the selling of the servants and the captives. So he said, no, I have other things to do with them. And basically he said that she didn't need a servant. And they returned home in some disappointment. But after they had gone to bed, they heard the voice of Nabi Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asking permission to enter. And when they gave him permission to enter, they both rose to their feet, but he told them, stay where you are. And he sat down beside them. Shall I not tell you something better than that which you asked of me? Better than the servants that you asked of me? And then they said, yes. And he said, I will give you words which Jibreel taught me, alayhi salam, that you should say, glory be to Allah 10 times after every prayer, and praise be to Allah 10 times, and Allahu Akbar, and that when you go to bed you should say them 33 times each. And Ali used to say, this is all he had to give instead of a servant. And Ali radiallahu anhu, Ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu used to say in the after years, I never once failed to say those dhikr since Rasulullah taught them to us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We now start the story of the Battle of Uhud, and we talk about the preparations for battle. The preparations for battle have been going on a long time. In fact, really, the Quraysh had been preparing for battle with the Muslims ever since Badr. But they were even more keen, because they had lost many of their they really wanted to do it even more. They wanted to fight the Muslims because they had lost a lot of their routes, their trading routes, right? Well, you remember they used to go to Syria, but they had to go past Medina. Now they were scared to go past Medina. Things like this, right? So the Meccans, they quickened their preparation, and they made an army as quick as they could. And they wanted to they said in Badr we weren't ready, right? In Badr, we got 1,000 people together, but we had to do it quickly. This time, we are going to prepare an attack so big, no one could resist it. No one could do anything against it. In the last days of Ramadan, a sealed letter was brought to Nabi Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam by a horseman who had ridden from Makkah to Medina in just 3 days. He had ridden so fast. It was from his uncle Abbas, and it warned him that an army of 3,000 men, this is a big army back then, 3,000 men, was just about ready to march out against Medina. 700 of the men were mailed. Back then, Zaini, they had very special armor called mail armor, chain mail. Very expensive armor. Only some people would have it. It was very hard to kill someone when they were wearing mail. 700 of the Meccan mail had very hard, because they've got very strong armor. 700 of the Meccan men had mails. And there was a troop of horses, 200 horses. And the camels, well, there were as many camels as men, 1,000 of them. Not even counting the transport camels, the ones that were taking like food and whatever on their back. Not even counting the camels that were taking the howdas with the women in them, right? The women were coming along as well, to not to fight, but to give strength to the men, to cheer them on. But so no, they won't. In battle, you don't kill a woman unless she fights you. Even if the woman was right there, you didn't kill her. So by the time the letter arrived, the Quraysh had already set out. They had left Makkah. The whole army. Their commander-in-chief, like the leader, was Abu Sufyan. And he took with him one of his wives, Hind. Her name was Hind. Also, there was one of the Meccans, Jubair ibn Mut'im. He sent with the army one of his slaves, an Abyssinian slave from Africa. His name was Wahshi. Like many of his country, Wahshi was an expert at throwing the javelin. Like a long stick with a pokey bit at the end. Wahshi would always throw and hit his mark. Even if he threw from far away, he could always get it right in someone's heart. And Jubair, his master, said to him, if you kill Hamza, Jubair was angry with Hamza because of his family. If you kill Hamza, because Hamza had killed some of his family in Badr, Jubair was very angry with Hamza. He said, if you throw your javelin and it kills Hamza, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncle, in revenge for what happened to my family, you are a free man. Remember, he's a slave right now, and he's being offered freedom, the biggest thing to a slave, if he just kills one man. Hind found out about this, and whenever the army stopped, she would pass by Wahshi, and she would say to him, go do it. Kill him in the darkness. She made it clear to him that she as well wanted Hamza dead, and that she would reward with money and gold the person who killed Hamza. Radiallahu anhu. The immigrants and the helpers, the Ansar and the Muhajirun still had 1 week before the enemy would reach them. But within that time, room had to be made inside the walls of Medina, right? And in other words, the animals had to be brought into the walls of Medina. You know, the animals would be outside on the grass or whatever outside. All of them were brought inside the walls, so that not one horse, not one camel, not one cow, not even one goat was outside the walls of Medina. Look, if this is the city, it's got walls around it, right? But you don't make your animals eat here, you send them outside so that they can eat the grass here, and then you bring them back in at the end of the day, and then you take them out, like that. Yeah. So all the animals had to be brought in. So everyone was told, bring your animals in, and they were all kept inside their houses, right? Inside the city itself. And now news came to the Muslims that they were taking the western route near the coast. So they were going near the Red Sea. And after some time, they turned inwards, away from the sea, and made a brief halt about 5 miles west of Medina, the Meccan army. Then they marched northeast for a few miles, and they camped on a famous strip of cultivated land in the plain below Mount Uhud, which overlooks Medina from the north. The Prophet sent out scouts who returned the next morning with the information about the numbers of the enemy. They were indeed as the letter had stated. Quraysh not only had the numbers in the letter, they had with them 100 men of the Bani Taqif, that's another tribe, and also people from Kinana, another tribe, and other allies, other tribes. The 3,000 camels, maybe more, 200 horses were all there, eating up all the pasture. In other words, you know how the Medina people were farmers, right? All of their farming was being eaten up by the Qurayshi camels and horses. This was an insult. That was not their stuff, that was the Medina's, that was their property. And they ate and ate and ate. Soon, not even a blade of green was to be left. The Prophet had to decide what to do. He himself was as yet unarmed, but that night he had a dream. That dream, he was wearing an impregnable coat of mail, an armor so strong Nothing could go through it. In the dream, nothing. And he was mounted on the back of a ram. I don't know. It's a dream. It's weird. He was on the back of a male sheep. I think a ram is. His sword was in his hand, but he noticed that his sword had a dent in it. Like when it's a little sword's meant to be straight, right? It's a little like this. It's dented. And he saw some kind which he knew to be some of his family. And they were sacrificed before his eyes.
What do you mean they were sacrificed?
Some of his friends and his family were killed in front of his eyes. Just a dream. Then he woke up. The next morning he told his companions what he had seen. And he interpreted it because he was an interpreter of dreams. He said that impregnable coat of mail, that coat of armor that nothing could go through, that was Medina. It's impregnable, nothing can go through it. And the dent in my sword is a blow that will be struck against myself. Someone will hit me. The sacrificed kind, the sacrificed family or friends, some of my companions will die. And as to the ram that I rode upon, this is the leader of this their squadron, whom we shall slay, inshallah. We will kill.
Who?
The leader of their army. His first, well, I don't know who it is. Anyway, his first thought was not to go out from the city. He said he was thinking it's better to not go out and meet them, but to stand a siege within its walls, to stay, because there's walls around the city, right? To stay inside the walls and stop anyone coming in, right?
And close all the doors.
Close, yeah, exactly. He nonetheless wished to have his opinion confirmed by others. It was by no means a strong conviction, just a thought. So he held a mashura, a consultation. What should we do? Should we go out and fight them? Or should we stay in here and make sure they stay out? Ibn Ubay was the first to speak. He was a munafiq. Ibn Ubay.
Wasn't he die?
Who, Ibn Ubay? No?
Do you remember the
Maybe Ubay. This is Ibn Ubay. He was a troublemaker in Medina. So Ibn Ubay was one of the munafiq. Well, he was a munafiq is someone who says they love Allah. Just a hypocrite. Do you know what a hypocrite is? He was a hypocrite. And Ibn Ubay spoke. He said, our city has never been violated. No one can fight our city. If they come, Medina, he's talking about Medina. He said, if anyone comes to Medina and tries to fight us, we'll win. Because our city is strong. And if they come, because he says in the history of Medina, no one's been able to come inside and defeat us. Because we have big walls and we're strong people and they will never beat us if we stay in the city. So he agreed with Rasulullah. But he was a munafiq, right? So everyone was taking his word with a grain of salt. Right? He said, we stay in the city and we protect the city. A lot of the... Huh? Yes. Well, the nature of a munafiq is he just goes with whatever is easier for him. He doesn't love Allah enough to die for him. So he thought it's safer for me if I'm inside my city, right? But a larger number of the older companions agreed. The ones who had done war for a long time, they agreed. Both sides, the Ansar and the Muhajirun, they inclined to this opinion. They said, yes, we kind of agree. We should stay in the city because it's a strong city. It's like a fortress. We will protect it. And the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, so we will stay in Medina and put the women and the children in the fortress and we will protect the fortress. But when he had spoken, the fortress is like something like strong that you can't get into. But when he had spoken, it became apparent that the younger men, they didn't agree. They were burning with eagerness to march out against the enemy. Right? Ya Rasulullah, said one of them, let us go and fight them. Let them not think we are scared of them, or that we are weak against them. These words were met with a murmur of approval. Murmur, yes, quiet approval. Many people from different parts were agreeing with this. And they added the argument that if we do not go and fight them, then they have just come and they've eaten all our crops. Everything we worked so hard for, they've just come and taken it from us. We have to go fight them to show them that they cannot do these kinds of things. It's wrong. Right? And many people were now starting to incline to be, more and more people were starting to incline to this position. Then one of the oldest men present rose to speak. He was an Ausi, a man of Aus, named Khaythama. He repeated many of the arguments already given, and then he spoke on a more personal note. His son Sa'ad was one of the few Muslims who had died at Badr. Last night in my sleep, he said, I saw my son, and he was more beautiful than I've ever seen him before. And I witnessed how it was given to him, that everything he wanted was fulfilled. And he had fruits and rivers of the garden. And he said, come to us. Be our companion in Jannah. Everything my Lord promised me, I have found to be true. And the man said, I'm old. I want to meet my Lord. So pray, Ya Rasulullah, that He will grant me martyrdom in the company of my son Sa'ad in Jannah. The Prophet made a prayer for Khaythama, silently. Then, finally another Ansar rose to speak. This time a Khazraji, Malik ibn Sinan. Ya Rasulullah, we have before us two good things. Either Allah will help us win over them, and this is what we would have, or else Allah will grant us shahada, martyrdom, death before His sake. I care not which it may be, for verily, as long as we do it purely for the sake of Allah, there is good in both. It was now clear, not only from the words that were spoken, but from the general approval with which they were received, that the majority of the people were against staying in the city and protecting the city, and they wanted to go out and fight the Quraysh. And so the Prophet decided that the Muslims should go and attack the Quraysh. At noon, they assembled for the Jum'ah, the Friday prayer, and in his khutbah, he made khutbah of the holy war, and about the battle that they have to fight, simply because they were being fought, and about the responsibilities of going to war, and that it should be done in earnestness and with sincerity and for the sake of Allah, not out of anger. And he said that victory would be theirs, that the Muslims would win if they remained steadfast, if they listened to everything they were told. Then he bade them to get ready to meet the enemy. Later that day, they all assembled again for the Asr. By that time, some other men from Upper Medina had mustered, and they were present in the mosque. They had got together and come. After the prayer, Nabi Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam took Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar radiallahu anhu with him into his house, and they helped him to dress for battle. Meanwhile, outside his house, the men lined up. Sa'ad,
Which man? Makkah?
no, outside, still in Medina. So Rasulullah is in his house, getting dressed with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu and Umar radiallahu anhu. Now outside his house, the men lined up outside, the Muslims, they were outside his house, and now they were saying something different. Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh and his friends reproved them, saying, you have compelled Rasulullah to go against his will. And if Rasulullah, he had a dream, And in that dream, Medina was impregnable, could not be attacked. This command has come from heaven. This dream has come from heaven. Why did you try to convince him to go out against the enemy? Put the decision back in his hands. Let him decide again. He's saying, why did you even, when Rasulullah says, I've had a dream, and in it I saw Medina, and I had an armor, and this was Medina and it's impregnable, and he's saying maybe we should stay in the city. Why did you try to convince him otherwise? Let him decide. He is Nabi Allah after all.
Was that right?
When Rasulullah came out, subhanallah, he walked out of his tent, and you can just imagine Nabi Allah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. He walked out, and he had around his helmet, he had wound his beautiful turban, and he donned a breastplate, armor like this on the chest, under which he wore a coat of mail, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He wore armor that came like this, and he had a leather belt around him, and on that leather belt he had a sword on this side and a shield on his back, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Just imagine him walking out. He's fully armored. He's got a shield around his back. He has a sword in his thing, and he says, give me my bow. Many of the men by that time, they had regretted what they had done. And as soon as they said, Ya Rasulullah, we should not have opposed you in what you were thinking. So do whatever you think is best. But he answered them, no. It's not right. When a prophet of Allah, when he has put on his armor, it's not good that he take it off until Allah has judged between him and his enemies. So let's continue with what we said and do it and go forward in the name of Allah. I tell you again, victory is for the Muslims if we be steadfast. And so they rode out to meet the enemy in battle in Uhud. Nabi Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with his sahabi. The march to Uhud. The Prophet had given instructions that the army should be ready to move off. They move towards Uhud, and while they were moving towards Uhud, Ibn Ubay was in consultation with Mashura, with some of his nearest followers during the night. He was talking to them, and when it was time to raise camp, he turned his back with 300 of the munafiqun, and they rode back to Medina. So the army which had gone out to Uhud was 1,000 strong. 1,000 strong. 300 of them were munafiqun. They were doubters. And they said that Allah and His Rasul have promised us nothing other than delusion. That whatever Rasulullah promised you and Allah promised you is never going to happen. And to the great shame of his son Abdullah ibn Ubay, did not even speak to the Prophet. With 300 men, he went back towards Medina. Some of the Ansar, because he was from their tribe, they ran to him and said, why are you leaving? And he said, Rasulullah has disobeyed me and obeyed young men who have no judgment. I see no reason why we should die in this crazy battle. Another man said, I adjure you by Allah, I beg you by Allah, do not desert your own people and your Prophet in the very presence of their enemy. But the munafiqun only answered, if we knew that you would be fighting, we would not leave you. But we do not think there will be a battle. This is lies of the munafiqun. They knew there would be a battle, but they're just saying things so that they can get away with leaving. And so they left, and now we were reduced, the Muslim army, to 700 men. And with much less camels, horses, everything. Much less than the Quraysh. Even though they marched on until they were directly between the enemy and Uhud. Rasulullah had now reached his objective. He was hoping to have the slope of the ground in his favor, right, to be downhill. The Prophet halted them in the place he wanted, and he got off his, he dismounted. He got off whatever, I don't know if it's a donkey or a horse or whatever, I don't know, camel, I don't know. But he got off whatever he was riding. Bilal radiallahu anhu made the adhan, and they moved into lines with their backs towards the mountain. This was their formation for battle. And the Prophet turned to them and exhorted them. He said to them, "Verily, this day you are at a station rich in reward." And the Prophet now chose his best archers. And he put some of them in the front, and about 50 of his best archers, he told them to take up a position. It was on a rise, hardly even a hill, a little to the left of his main force. So if the main force is here, he put them, Zayn, are you looking? If the main army was here, he put 50 men here. 50 men. And he put 50 archers, bow and arrow people. He put as their leader Abdullah ibn Jubair. And he was an Ausi. And he gave them orders, saying, "Keep their cavalry from us." Cavalry is the one on horses and whatever, anything riding. Keep them away from us. Let them not come upon us from our rear. So the army is here, and the 50 are here. So that the Makkans, if they want, they can go like this, but they can't, because they will shoot them with arrows. These 50 are protecting us so that the Makkans don't come from the back.
Then when he goes like this, they'll shoot.
Exactly. If he comes like this, he'll be shot all the way. Shot. He'll be dead by the time he comes here. Right? So, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you must stay there. No matter what happens in battle, for or against us, stay at this post. Do not move from this hill. If you see us winning, seek not to have a share in it. And if you see us being killed, don't even come and help us. No matter what, if we're winning or losing, you stay right here. And these were the words of Nabi Allah. And so we begin the battle of Uhud.